It's that time of the week again, and you are welcome back to Molby on the Spot here in Anfield Index Pro. I'm Trev Downey, joined, of course, by the Liverpool legend that is Jan Molby. So we can look back at the week that was and wince. Good evening, Jan.
Yeah, good evening, Trevor. What a great time, eh?
What a time to be alive, brother. I'm struggling with all of it. I'm sure you are yourself. We've been blessed since we started this show to have nothing but good things to talk about. And even when things were bad, like a comparable 6-game losing streak under Kloppo, there was never this feeling of despair and despondency that is around the place now. It's quite remarkable to the extent that you and I think, are going to have to engage in some conversation around the solidity or otherwise of the manager's job. That's quite a stunning spot for us to be in.
Absolutely, Trevor. I mean, who would have thought that we would end up in this position? But I do think it's kind of becoming real. I've done a bit of media work in the last couple of days, and the one question everybody asks: is he under pressure? Of course, he's under pressure. He's the manager of Liverpool, and we're not winning. The players are not playing well, and new players who've joined the club are not settling in. So, of course, he's under pressure. But we're not about to sack him. And then people go, yeah, but of course, if he continues, then it becomes a different story, doesn't it? So after Forest on Saturday, and when we did the show last week, Trevor, I was so reluctant with this Forest game. I went a narrow 2-1 win because I was so reluctant because I just thought that Elliot Anderson and Gibbs White in the middle, I just think, and we did, we struggled against them, but I just never saw the struggle against PSV Eindhoven. Almost regardless of what shape we're in, I just thought we're better than them, and we would show it at Anfield in the European night. And so, never mind to lose, but to lose in the manner that we did, it's kind of blown the door open, hasn't it, Trevor? And I'm not trying to be funny or nothing, but to go through all the problems we got is easier a 3-hour show, isn't it? If we start and go through every problem we've got, and also try and find solutions to, how we can move out of this difficult period and how we can move forward, isn't it? How are we going to be looking in 18 months, Trevor? These are kind of, when we did what we did in the summer, you thought, I know we're going to look like in 2 years' time, but we don't anymore.
We don't, and the uncertainty is the thing that's eating away at most of us, I think, because like I started the show off with, that was what you and I have had as a lovely sort of reliable blanket to snuggle into for the duration of the show that we've been doing for 7-8 years, whatever it is now. It feels like we've always had a sort of certainty around where the club is going, the trajectory, the knowledge that things are bad now, but they will sort themselves out. And a lot of people were leaning into that very thing, Jan. Okay, it's a bad spell, but we need to sort of weather it. Look, this guy won us the league. Players don't become bad overnight. All the usual cliches were getting fired at the wall. And listen, they have a lot of sense behind them, because most of them were true, right? Arne Slot has not suddenly become a terrible manager. He was very impressive last year in winning the league with his tactical work in game. Now, is he capable of having a bad run at the same time as all the players are? Yes. Are there extenuating circumstances going on at the moment where some senior players may have just, a feeling that it's coming to an end for them at the end of this season anyway? Yes. Are there new boys who haven't settled yet? Again, yes. And are there other disgruntled in-betweeny guys who aren't getting a sniff of the team, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent? Again, yes. This can't really add up to a happy camp. And that's probably the biggest difference. It's not to say Slot is less of a man manager than Klopp, although most humans are. But the camp can't be content in itself. There's too many things going on there, isn't there? And there's the whole blanket of the grief with Diogo hanging over everything as well. It's just got to have, it seems to have made for a very sort of disjointed group of individuals, because that's how it's showing on the pitch, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been in dressing rooms, Trevor, and I've been in successful dressing rooms and also in dressing rooms when it starts to go the other way. And disgruntled players, there's nothing new about disgruntled players at football clubs. But I do think that some of the most disgruntled footballers at our clubs are some of the long-serving players. Take somebody like Joe Gomez, Now, Joe has never been viewed as in our best starting 11 player, yeah. But he's probably, I might be right in saying he's our longest serving player. So to have that kind of unhappiness of the players who've been there for a long time, it's the kind of worst unhappiness you can have. If it's new players who've just come in through the door and whatever, we can all deal with that. And we know why they're unhappy, isn't it? But we've got some of these, players that you expect to be able to, they get a better grasp of what it's like to play at Liverpool. They know what it's like to be successful and all these things. And so they're kind of the last people you want to be unhappy, and I guess Robbo is a little bit the same, isn't it? As much as we want to be sensible about it, and Robbo played 3 games in a week, and you go, well, maybe he needs a rest. He shows have to do Scotland games or whatever. But that's not how Robbo is thinking, is it? He's thinking, my club's in trouble. Why aren't I playing? As much as he'll be as diplomatic as he can. So it is an issue, isn't it? It is absolutely an issue, Trevor. As I said before, the problems everywhere you look, and everyone I speak to have different issues about what is wrong. And I've never even, I talk to myself. I haven't heard anyone kind of come up with a solution that I think, do you know what, that might actually work. It is an extremely tricky situation, and I'm also not a big fan of all of a sudden going, I told you so, because I didn't. I was quite happy in the summer. I thought we'd done some good work. There was certain things that you could question, but I think we all thought with the quality of the manager and with the quality of the players, we will overcome all these problems. And obviously now, some of these issues, and we'll talk about some of these issues on the show, Trevor, isn't it? That might have been issues in the summer that we thought we'll overcome this because Arne Slot, the players, the Liverpool Football Club will overcome these things in it. But we haven't. That doesn't mean that we won't. But at the moment we haven't, which makes this period now, just in terms of form, it just makes it horrendous, Trevor. Horrendous.
And people are struggling to believe what they're seeing with their own eyes. I know it doesn't make any sense to me when people tell me what's going on, even though I've watched the games and I've done show after show about the games, and just like to have a look again, because I think there's a starkness to actually watching it in front of you. Just to share this with people here. I mean, I find this to be a kind of unrivaled period. And it's precisely because of what you said. There are enough good footballers that it shouldn't be a situation where we are looking at these results. There are enough good footballers that any given 11 at Liverpool can go out and not be on the receiving end of these results. The 4-1 last night against PSV, we'll get to it. The 3-0 against Forest, we'll get to it. Both of those are at Anfield. At Anfield. City, 3-0 at City. You can always suffer a defeat at City, but not in the manner that we did. The Real and Villa games seem now to have been glorious outliers where teams came and were reckless in their defensive attitude, and we managed to keep our act together against Villa and keep the clean sheets and actually put together a very good performance against Real. But again, outliers, because the one before that, a 3-0 defeat to Crystal Palace, again at home. Brentford 3-2. This is absolutely appalling stuff. United, a couple of games before that, beating us 2-1 at Anfield. Again, Jan, like I said to you, it almost requires saying these things out loud for us to understand just how bad this run has been. Because a lot of us are inclined to put our fingers in our ear and say la, 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 because you don't want to think about the thing we've got here, the slot question. Nobody really wants to talk about this. Sensible fellas like yourself and myself have been around a good few years, don't want to talk about this. And yet this team, this manager, the combo of the two of them, they are making us have this question. I mean, it's all very well to say we're not going to change the manager and be very certain about it. But what happens if we lurch into West Ham and into Sunderland and get another 2 disappointing results? And it could easily happen. I have no faith that it won't happen the way things are going at the moment. At what point do you call it? Do you just stick with the manager regardless? And here's where I'm trying to get to with this. I'm not a fella who I'm eternally grateful to Arne Slot for winning us a league. and being instrumental in that win. And I think he's a very good man. I think he's the right personality for the job. He's unflappable. Love all those things about him. He's clearly an excellent tactician. Again, he proved that last year in winning the league when Jurgen Kutten with the same group of players. So the last thing I want to do is talk about him being on his bike. But the problem, Jan, is we're coming up to a window. And in the window, money can be spent to address some of the issues you mentioned earlier on. One of them is the midfield, and that has been an issue that's been hanging around. You and I were talking about in the summer. Yeah, we were happy with the people coming in, but clearly the midfield wasn't addressed. Neither was the defence, and it was a last-minute shit show. Okay. But what do? Do you give Arne Slot the money and say, go ahead and invest in players you think are the right players? And then if it doesn't right itself, we've hamstrung ourselves for the next person coming in summer if it doesn't clear itself up. I can understand why people are saying that this is a real live issue and there's a really harsh decision that might need to be made before anyone would really like to make it. What do you think of that theory?
Well, I mean, I find it impossible to disagree with anything you say in many ways, Trev. I mean, we're not a second football club, but what does that mean? Sometimes you're being forced to do things that you don't really want to do in an ideal world. In terms of the January window coming up, and I think there's some interesting angles on this, is that let's say that Arne Slot gets through December with a mixed bag of results, but it takes the pressure off him a little bit. Do we then go into January, Arne Slot stays in the job, but we then don't spend any money? Would that be a possibility? That you kind of go, well, okay, we're going to give Arne a bit longer, but this group of players, so we're not going to spend. Or let's say Arne Slot has, let's just say, 3 defeats on the bounce. As of from today, that makes it very difficult for him to stay in a job. Then we appoint somebody else. We would then be some kind of, we would almost make a promise to a new manager, wouldn't we? A new manager will look at the squad and he'd go, if you want me to take this job, there's certain places we need to strengthen in this. And so that's also an angle, isn't it? Because I think Arne Slot would be desperate for new signings, but I don't think he'll be jumping up and down about it because he's been part of this journey, hasn't he? And I'm sure in the summer, as I'm not convinced that it was a great plan we had in the summer when you look back on it, but I'm 100% sure that Arne Slot was part of that plan. He would have sat in on those meetings where they'd gone, this is what we're going to do, and then we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and in 18 months' time, we're going to look like this, and he'd have gone, okay, I'm all in on that, yeah, let's go. In the end, we got so many things wrong. The first thing, Trevor, and we should have mentioned this a long time ago, is that people talk about all the players we've signed, too many. And I go, yeah, but how come we put ourselves in a position where we needed to sign so many players? That, for me, is bad planning. You put yourself in a position where you need to sign 8 or 10 new players. That's bad planning. How did we ever end up in that position? And when we know that there's things happening like Trent Alexander-Arnold, then you've got to stop the others. Why did we sell the most promising centre-half we had? Is that because the money was good, 35 million euros? And why, in the end, did we sell Luis Diaz so we would get, let's say, 30 million euros more than we would have done 12 months down the line when we needed him? Especially what happened to Shota. Those things just doesn't make any sense, Trevor. So, yes, Arne Slot, but at some stage, we will have to visit Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes. That's for sure.
I'm glad you said that. And I think that is exactly the kind of balance that we've come to expect from you when we ask you these kind of questions. It remains a live issue. It won't go away. Some people have leaned into criticizing the players. Your fellow ex-Red, Jamie Carragher, was incredibly harsh recently on a couple of occasions about Mo Salah. He seems to have a bit of a bee in his bonnet about Mo not fronting up and talking to the press for reasons. I'm not sure why, given that if Virgil doesn't do it, surely Andy Robbo would be next in line. But he seems to be bent out of shape about Mo and the lack of end product from Mo this season. It seems daft to me, and I take no pleasure in any sort of discussion around Mo Salah and his drop-off form, considering he won us the league almost, well, I won't say single-handed, but it was a huge impact on our league win, was Mo Salah's form. It leaves you in a situation where no matter how calm and pragmatic you might be or I might be in our approach to this, how little we want to consider it, like I said, the reality is if we lurch into the weekend and then lurch back out of it with a defeat at West Ham, the pressure builds to a kind of untenable level. There's only so many times you can hear reassurances that the club has faith in Slot. That used to be, again, when we were younger, the kiss of death for a manager was the people coming out and saying, hey, he's got our backing, you know. So it's left us in a situation, and it might be tasteless. I don't really care. We're going to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, we're not doing our job properly. It's left us in a situation where we have people talking about the reality of what do we do if this man is no longer in a job in the short term, or in the medium term, or in the summer, or whenever it happens to be. And there were an awful lot of people talking about who might step up and replace him. And I've just put up there for the video viewers the tweet there from Anfield Index with the odds for the next Liverpool manager. And again, look, you heard us. You heard what I said here. This is not about, dancing on anyone's grave or anything like that. I would be wonderful if Arne starts against West Ham and puts us back on track. But the signs are not good. And so there's a big talk about this. You can see them there yourself, Jan. Jurgen Klopp is 2-1. Iriola is 5-1. Glasner 6-1. Unai Emery 9-1. Simone Inzaghi 10-1. As is Nagelsmann. As is Gerrard, for reasons. Zidane 12-1, and Marco Silva 14-1. And I don't know if any of those make any sense. The only one I can think of, I'm looking at Simone Inzaghi, who might easily be tempted. Obviously, an awful lot of people would love the job that are on this list. This guy doesn't want a bar of it. But Inzaghi is possibly the best candidate of the ones that are there in terms of his track record. I don't know what you think about that. Just humor me for a minute. If you were to think about someone who could step in and maybe steady ships, or sort of manage the squad as is in a good way, given their previous track record. Is it a Nagelsmann that you go for next? Is it an Iriola, kind of an up-and-comer? Or do you go with someone who's a little bit more proven and has a league under their belt, like Inzaghi? I mean, what do you think? Who are the outstanding candidates?
I think, should Liverpool ever need to appoint another manager, they will go through the same process as they went through last time. And they will end up, I think, trying to second guess who the next big thing is going to be. I think that's exactly what we did with Arne Slot. There was nothing wrong with Arne Slot's CV as such, but he was in the Netherlands. And I think we thought, well, there's everything about this guy that we like. And I think they would go through the same process again, trying to find the next guy. Because when you look at the established names, Trevor, is there any of the established names that are within reach that you really fancy? You know, I mean, the sexiest name on that list is Zinedine Zidane, and what he did at Real Madrid and whatever. But would you really want him at Liverpool because of the style he has as a manager? He's not a coach. We brought Arne Slot in. Arne Slot is not our manager, is he? He's our head coach. You know, there's a reason that we gave him that title. He's here to coach the team, isn't it? You know, so on that list, Iriola at Bournemouth, great manager. But is he a star maker? Is he somebody who makes it? Is he somebody who helps the players the next step in their careers? Helps a football club in the next step? Is he the finished article? Is he the guy to deal with some of the best players in the world with that intensity that he demands every minute of every day? I don't know. So yeah, on that list, Nagelsmann is a really, really good manager. He's got a great profile, but I think for the time being, he's got a job he's quite keen on with the German national team. So it is very, very difficult. I mean, last time we were looking at the manager, there were a couple of candidates, and one of them who's now at Manchester United with Ruben Amorim. Arne Slot was somewhere on the list. Even Thomas Frank at Brentford, a lot of people looked at Thomas Frank. But all those have kind of had that move, haven't they? They've had that next move, and now you can make a decision, whatever you think of Thomas Frank and Ruben Amorim and Arne Slot. So you kind of look at the next ones, and I was looking through a little bit today and seeing, you know, who are the teams who are doing really well in the domestic leagues, and you've got to be serious and maybe only look at the top sort of 8 or 10 domestic leagues. And is there any sort of young managers that's pulling up trees. And I actually ended up in Germany with Leipzig, who's back. Leipzig is back doing their stuff. They're second in the Bundesliga to Bayern Munich. And they got a really young coach called Arne Werner. And I was just wondering whether, when Liverpool do all the things that they do, that it might be somebody like him. And they up and go, he might just be the one. I don't know.
It's going to be very interesting to watch, and the speculation will only continue apace. I wanted to address it with you, and the chat panel there has gone wild with suggestions. We see it, fair play to you, but we just got to keep this show on the road here, folks. A couple of things I wanted to address. First of all, with regard to Arne, who's in the job now and for the at least short-term foreseeable, I feel a little bit sorry for the guy because I don't think he does himself any favors, and I don't think it's out of silliness. I said last night in Raw, I've known a lot of Dutch people over the years from a teaching gig that I used to do during the summer, and then just making friends with some of those people and then getting to know their friends. And I know it's a cliche to talk about nationalities in any kind of given way, but there is a sort of a frankness and an honesty to Dutch people. You've experienced it. You lived there. And it's not a cliche to say that. And I think sometimes that's a sword that Arne falls on in his interviews. He was asked recently, like, what do you think is going on? He said, I don't know. Basically, I'm confused. And a lot of people have used that as a stick to beat him with, whereas I kind of vaguely admire that. It's like he's not hiding. He doesn't go hiding in interviews. He doesn't put down a line of bullshit, which even Jurgen, who is sainted in everyone's opinion, could engage in when he wanted to just deflect and just talk nonsense to shut a topic down. So for that reason, I think if it does, all it's doing is actually fanning the flames. And I do feel a little bit sorry for the dude that way. What do you think about that? About how he comes over? I think he's been very dignified, I have to say.
I do. I agree. I saw somebody say a while ago, and it wasn't necessarily about Arne Slot, but it was about Dutch people in general. And they said, let's not forget it's their second language, and they might struggle to get their point across. And I said, no. The fact that it's their second language, I think they're very much more direct to the point because they don't have the same use of the vocabulary. So they get to the point very quick, and you can't misunderstand it unless, of course, you choose to and go, "Oh, he never meant that." But I think he did, and I think that with Arne, we saw the interview after the game against PSV Eindhoven. He was talking about the penalty with Virgil van Dijk, and most. So we can't be in any doubt that Virgil van Dijk, was disappointed that a foul wasn't given. It wasn't a foul, but he was disappointed. Arne Slot then said, you're not going to get a foul for a little push like that, and that's his captain, isn't it? So that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it, Trevor? Is that, but it's that kind of demand, isn't it? It's that kind of demand you have in the Eredivisie, you have in the Bundesliga, managers before games, before after games, give it to us. You're not allowed to wrap it up. Just give us to it. What is it? So yeah, it is an issue. I think it's unfair to hit him over the head with it, use it as a stick. I think that's very unfair because when managers are not honest, or when managers waffle and don't answer questions, we moan as well, isn't it? And when they're being direct and trying to explain, and I know that in reality, when you're lost 9 out of 12, you don't want explanations, you want action, isn't it? But on press conferences, press conference after the PSV game, press conference the next day for the weekend, isn't it? He has to answer the question. So, I do feel for him.
Yeah, and he does. He has to keep rolling out in front of these cameras, in front of these lights, in front of these people who are asking questions that are less than tactful sometimes. And I do feel, Jan, that probably when the dust settles on this, there'll probably emerge that there was maybe a level to this that we're not aware of, maybe some sort of breakdown in a couple of different major relationships. I think that will probably be at the back of some of this disjointedness. It's hard to explain otherwise in terms of the form falling off a cliff. You saw Curtis Jones' interview, did you, post-match?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Where he talked about, we need to be out there, we need to be like dogs. We used to be like dogs getting into tackles, and he was including himself in it. He wasn't excusing himself from any criticism either. And again, immediately, I saw this, and I was watching it via whatever channel it is that Carragher and Henry do bits for, and it went straight to Carragher, and he again just seemed pissed off and said, "Well, so just do it. Like, don't talk about we need to do it. Just do it." Which I think was counter to the tone that Jones was setting. He was saying, "Look, we've let ourselves down," and you could interpret that as a critique of the manager. You could interpret that as a critique of his fellow players, of himself, but certainly not something to then turn around and go, like, "Well, I don't want to hear about that. Just get on with it." Yeah, fine. Like, I mean, these players can't win in these post-match interviews. I thought it was indicative, Jan, of a bigger kind of malaise around the place. When you have a player coming out saying that we're not getting it stuck into tackles, and you can see it with your eye test, man, right? You and I, we go back a while to where passion, determination, win your battles, earn the right to play. How many times did you hear that in your playing career? Earn the right to play. Every game, man. You told me that. And that's sadly lacking. And for that, Slot does have to shoulder most of the blame, right?
I just wonder, Trevor, you know, I've been working with TV for quite a number of years now, and we sort of had the same issue when Sir Alex was at Old Trafford, because you stay behind the line. You never overstep the line. And the moment he left, it was then a free-for-all, wasn't it? I mean, the next manager after Sir Alex was David Moyes, and the grief he got, you know. And I feel a little bit the same here. You know, with Klopp, everybody stayed on the right line, didn't do anything to upset him. And Arne Slot, not that Arne Slot is not a man of some standing, but he's different. Yeah. So he never puts anyone in their place. You know, he kind of answer every question in a polite, nice way. Whereas, you know, Klopp and Sir Alex would let you know, wouldn't they, in those certain terms, either verbally or even with rolling their eyes or whatever. Arne Slot is a decent man, so he never does that. So I think, and I also think with Klopp, like, people often ask me, what about Klopp, Jan? I said, we have nothing to do with Klopp. Ex-players, we have nothing to do with Klopp. Even some of my ex-teammates who are ambassadors of the club have nothing to do with Klopp. Klopp was here to coach the team, isn't it? Arne Slot is a bit more accommodating. You know, we also do some shows for the group I work for, and we have studios on the touchline for some of the games, and you always know when it's Liverpool, because the Netherlands part of our group. You always know when it's us, because Netherlands part of our group, that he will come. You know, but I've seen plenty of German TV stations, channels at Anfield over the years, and Liverpool getting the result that they did or whatever. There's no Klopp, is it? But Arne is always there, isn't he? So it breeds some kind of familiarity that in situations like that works against him, because people are just that little bit braver, and that includes ex-players.